Hello and welcome to Roll for Sanity, where we become mythos investigators in the world of Call of Cthulhu role-playing. And welcome to all the new investigators joining since the last vid. Today, we're following up on the Pulp Doctor character video with a quick video on making a weird science gadget, which the Pulp talent of weird science allows you to make. We'll take a look at some examples, what makes a good gadget for you and your keeper, then roll some dice to see how good our Pulp Doctor's device turns out to be. If you take a look at the Pulp Cthulhu book on page 87, it gives you some examples of gadgets to get you started. First up is an auto lockpick, which gives a Pulp investigator a 40% chance to pick locks and doors. There's a voice mimicker, which allows the character to change their voice, and there is a ghost detector, which, detects ghosts by lighting up a bulb. The moon transporter, quoted in the book, isn't given as an example, which doesn't surprise me. For me, a weird science gadget has to be smart. What do I mean by this? Is the gadget specific? Does it have a well-defined purpose or skill that it replicates? Under building gadgets, keepers are encouraged to limit a gadget for a single specific use. Is the gadget measurable? To quote the song, can its bounds be met? Does it have a range or roll a dice to gauge the effect it has? Is the gadget achievable? Practical imagination will be needed here. As components might not have been invented yet, they could be super rare, or are they even affordable? Is the gadget relevant to your character or to the game? I'll pick on that moon transporter again, as unless the game is set on the moon, then another choice of gadget would probably be better for your investigator. Is the gadget time-based? For how long does the gadget last? Do components burn out or need recharging? What happens if a fumble is rolled during its use? Let's throw some gadgets into the smart matrix and see how they shape up. The ghost detector. This will be specifically to detect ghosts in a measurable 20-foot radius with flashing lights when the ghost gets closer. Achievability? Well, no components are mentioned, nor for how much time the unit will function. And relevant? You better hope your adventure has ghosts in it. Next up, the auto lockpick. It specifically picks locks with a measurable 40% chance. A brief description of a tube with lockpick sounds very achievable for a weird scientist and very relevant for most investigations. No mentions of time restrictions on this gadget. One more before we make our own, the jetpack, or rather jump pack as I like to think of it. Very specific, as an investigator can jump a measurable 200 feet or 60 meters in the air. A nice description of achievable components and will be relevant to any pulp hero and is time-based as only 4 jumps can be made before it needs to be refueled, and it will explode for 2d6 damage to all in a 5-foot radius and 3d6 damage to the user if a fumble is rolled. So, what can we make for our weird science gadget? Well, I've already got something in mind for my pulp psychiatrist doctor character. If you think back to the Men in Black films, they have those little flashy devices where you click a button, there's a bright flash of light, and people forget what has just happened to them. And it'd be very handy in a game if somebody is traumatized. You can give them a quick flash of the weird science device, and it will actually allow you to break their madness for a vital few minutes. So that's the idea. How do we go about building that device as a smart weird gadget? Well, first we have to break it down into what skill or talent we're trying to replicate. If we think back to the auto lockpick, that's mimicking the lockpick skill. So I think our weird gadget is going to be mimicking either hypnosis or psychiatry. When we take a look on page 38 of the Pulp Cthulhu handbook, we can see that the psychoanalysis skill allows the hero to alleviate mental trauma for a short amount of time. To quote, it allows the hero to ignore the effects or phobia of mania for 1d6 minutes, allowing a claustrophobic person to hide in a cupboard or an arachnophobic person to touch a spider. That's a very specific purpose for our gadget, with a measurable effect of 1d6 minutes. Are the components achievable? It's unlikely to be as small as the Men in Black neuralizer, so think of it something more like a flashbulb with advanced components. It's very relevant to our doctor character, who wants to help people, and to make the device time-based, we'll follow the example of the jetpack and say the battery can only last 4 flashes before it must be replaced. We'll leave it up to the imagination of our keeper to decide what happens to the patient's mind should our doctor fumble their role when they use their device. That all sounds like a complex gadget that's going to take more than a few days to do, but less than a few years to do. So we'll split the difference and say it's going to take 1d10 plus 5 months to complete. We'll then need to make a combined roll to see if we can get the device to work. When we do this combined roll, we choose 2 skills we want to combine and take the lowest score for which we have to aim. So this would be electrical repair and psychoanalysis. If we get a regular success, the device is 40% effective. A hard success will mean 60% effective, and an extreme success means it's very well made with a 90% success rate. We've got our smart device. Let's feed the dice to Cthulhu and roll for sanity. That Eldar sign on the hundreds means 00, so that is a great result of 02. An extreme success for Ez, our Pulp Doctor, who now has a weird science gadget that works 90% of the time to help someone ignore the phobia or mania for a few minutes. Thanks for joining us in the Pulp Cthulhu Weird Science Workshop, and we'll roll for sanity again soon.